90s fans love to call their decade the golden era of basketball. But what if I told you the 1990s was actually the worst era in NBA history? The numbers, the drafts, and even the players themselves. It all points to one truth. Outside of Michael Jordan, the league was trash. The NBA added 6 new franchises after 1988. That meant rosters filled with CBA call-ups of guys who wouldn't have sniffed the league in the 80s made teams. By the mid-90s, vets like Charles Barkley, Larry Bird, and even Jerry Sloan were saying out loud that the product was diluted. Dennis Rodman even went a little further, even calling the 72-win Chicago Bulls overrated because the league was so weak. It gets even worse.
Why is your music so loud? And it only gets louder and louder, and then he'll turn the captions off. I have no issue with what you're saying. All those quotes are true. You could do the same with these 3 guys when they speak of the current era. All 3 of these guys have had negative statements and criticism about today's NBA. Why would you use Dennis Rodman saying the Bulls were overrated when he also says that Michael Jordan would average 50 today? He also said the three-peat Bulls and Run TMC would beat the KD Warriors. Number 2, Larry Bird may do it in a very nice way, but he's extremely critical of today's game. Whether it's the terrible All-Star game, the inordinate amount of threes being shot, but mainly, he has complained about the lack of defense being played today, because the sliders have been moved so far to benefit the offense. Even a guy like Larry Bird doesn't appreciate nor like that. I don't think I really need to quote Charles Barkley. He's extremely vocal about the negatives of the past 10, 15 years. This is something I really don't understand with these defenders of the new era. Y'all do realize that there are plenty players and coaches of the new era that talk trash about the new era too.
How did you feel about the tweet that LeBron sent out? Bronny was better than some current NBA guys.
We do guys a lot of sorry in our league. I'm gonna be honest. No cap.
In 6 different seasons during the 90s, 20% of the NBA lost 60-plus games. 1 out of every 5 teams was basically unwatchable.
I don't know when to start counting for a certain decade, like 1989 to 1990. Does that belong to the 80s or the 90s? I don't know. If you count from 1999 to 2009, there are 43 teams with at least 55 losses. So, is that really an extreme improvement? I don't think so. And if you fast forward to today's era, just the past 2 years, they've already had 8 teams with 60 losses. So, the point I'm trying to make is, even if the 90s are the worst at this, it's not by much.
And the draft pipeline, it was an absolute disaster. Look at the number 1 picks. 1990, Derek Coleman, supposed to be Jordan's rival coming out of Syracuse, but he made his way out of stardom. 1994, Glenn Robinson out of Purdue, got paid but never moved the needle. On 1995, Joe Smith.
What? Huh? What?
Huh? One of the biggest number 1 draft busts of all time. Outside of 1992 with Shaquille O'Neal and 96 with Kobe and AI, the 90s draft classes produced more disappointments than franchise stars. Compared to the 80s, 2000s, the 90s talent was just...
Imagine trying to talk trash about the draft classes of the 90s? Do I really need to explain how ridiculous of a freezing take that is? That is so stupid. You should go to jail for saying that. Is that why you play the music so loud? Because you're ashamed of your terrible takes? What? So you mentioned Shaq, Kobe, and AI. Those are the only all-time greats drafted in the 90s? For real, bro? I get it, you can't name them all, and I'm not going to. Hold on, let me address the first issue. Derek Coleman was like a walking 20 and 10 for like 5 or 6 years. Joe Smith, yeah, he didn't really pan out, but he maxed out at 18 points per game. That's not terrible. He also played to like 2011. So he couldn't have been that bad, right? And you look way too old to be talking trash about big dog Glenn Robb. We're disrespecting Glenn Robinson now? Even though I couldn't really hear what you said, I'm just assuming it was negative. You're really gonna mention the 2000s as a comparison. Do I really need... I don't like doing stuff like this, but you made me do it. Darko, Kwame, Hashim, OJ Mayo, Jimmer Fredette, Thomas Robinson, Stromile Swift. Just look at my damn video of my favorite bus of all time. They're all from the 2000s and 2010s. If you're calling Joe Smith a bus, what the hell is Marvin Williams, Evan Turner, Dante Exum, Michael Carter Williams? I'm not saying these guys couldn't play basketball. Anthony Bennett, bro. I don't need to name anymore. Jahlil Okafor.
The first round bust, like Greg Oden.
Bro, if you're going to mention the 90s, just look at every MVP of the 2000s. Outside of LeBron, they're all drafted from the 90s. You look at every great team that either won a ring or came close in the 2000s, some of the 2010s, they're all drafted from the 90s. Most of them, are drafted from the 90s.
The rules made the game even uglier. Illegal defense stopped teams from running zones, which turned big men into lazy post jumpers and slowed the pace to a ball. Even NBA exec Rod Moore admitted teams were abusing the illegal defense so badly, fans were bored watching the product.
Shit down.
In Phil Jackson's triangle system, it wasn't magic. It was a built-in zone offense that exposed weak defenders stuck in outdated rules. And what about Jordan's competition? Most guys didn't rise up. They bent the knee. Players literally called him Black Jesus, admitted that they feared him and shelled up when it mattered most.
If the triangle offense was so trash and it was just taking advantage of the sorry 90s rules, why would it work as much as it did in the 2000s? It yielded 5 championships and 7 appearances. This whole Black Jesus thing, and players feared Jordan and they shelled up against him. Shaq's big ass said he was scared of Michael Jordan. He didn't shell up against him, he beat his ass in the playoffs. Even a guy like Reggie Miller, yes, who goes on Jimmy Kimmel or wherever he went, and he keeps telling that great story about never trash talk Black Jesus. Okay. He didn't shell up against Jordan. He pushed his ass off and got a game-winning 3 in the playoffs. Took Michael Jordan and the Bulls to a Game 7 with all of his bald-headed friends. Reggie Miller was trying to fight MJ all the time. But as far as the whole Black Jesus, like the nickname, did y'all not watch He Got Game? Earl the Pearl was called Black Jesus, you know?
Oh, the Pearl? You know what they call him?
What?
Jesus. That's what they call him, Jesus. Then the white media got a hold of it, then they got to call him Black Jesus. You know, he can't just be Jesus, he got to be Black Jesus, you know.
The 90s finals were so uninspiring that in 1994, the league cut away from the Rockets-Knicks game and showed an O.J. Simpson car chase. That's how boring the league was without Michael Jordan.
Hey,
Do you actually believe the crap that comes out of your mouth?
So here's the question. What really made the 90s great at all? Was it depth? No. Was it draft classes?
Damn right!
No. Was it the competition? Definitely not the competition. It was just Michael Jordan. And if your entire era's legacy hangs on one guy, maybe it wasn't so great after all. 90s fans, explain in the comments what made the decade so special without mentioning Michael Jordan.
Also, if you could maybe just sometimes
keep it down.
I mean, it was OJ, bro. That was an epic moment. And for some reason, in the 90s, TV stations acted like we just loved and cared about car chases. I guess their algorithm told them that. That has nothing to do with the fans. I'm pretty sure there were a lot of fans like, man, I want to see this shit. Go back to the game. And it's all hypothetical, but I'm pretty sure they would have cut away from a Michael Jordan Bulls finals. As far as the NBA so dependent on MJ to be there or else nobody cares. Do you really want to look at the viewership numbers?
I don't think you'll find them as helpful as you thought they'd be.
If the 90s are absolutely nothing without Jordan, and the Rockets finals were so boring. If that was true, I don't think Game 7 of the Knicks versus Rockets would be viewed higher than every single game in the Blazers versus Bulls series. You have the face of an old man and the mind of a young, ignorant kid, so I can't tell if you're young or old, but
my name Young Buck, but I look like an old man.
You kind of just had to be there, bro. I mean, we got the best jerseys and warm-ups by far.
By far.
Best musical themes by far. We had like 1 million basketball video games back then. We had Courtside, NBA Jam, NBA Shootout, NBA in the Zone. Of course, NBA Live. I think NBA Showtime came out in 2000, but I'm going to mention it anyway. We had Hang Time, bro. There was also a lot of b-ball movies back then, excluding Space Jam. I'm not going to name them all. I just think it was a different era. But as far as like on the court, getting down to the nitty-gritty, I'm not saying the 90s is the only decade to have them, but there were a lot of rivalries back then. Homegrown rivalries. I do not mean this 100%. Shaq played on like 6 teams. Charles Barkley played on like 3. Alonzo Mourning switched teams, whatever. If you look at the Jazz versus the Bulls, I mean, to this day, these are like the most viewed finals ever. And I think what really helps, obviously Michael Jordan would be the #1 reason. But I think when you have a Karl Malone and John Stockton, who have been a Utah Jazz their entire life, and at that time, Pippen and Jordan have been Bulls for over a decade. There were, not all of them, but there were a lot of actual rivalries. When you think of Reggie Miller and Ewing's Knicks, they were there for a very long time. Like, come on, Ewing left when he was like 63 years old. Reggie Miller stayed there the whole time. I'm not saying this goes for the entire league, but even Hakeem, he stayed there for a very long time. Like me personally, Michael Jordan is not one of my favorite players. What got me into the NBA is Stephon Marbury, Chris Webber, Mount Mutombo, Vince Carter, and guys like Mo Pete, Jermaine Jones, Antonio Daniels. Yeah, I know. Who are they, right? These were some of my favorite players. Whatever, man, I'm done. Low key, bro, you just had to be there. It wasn't perfect. I hate illegal defense. Outside of that, it was absolute cinema. There's no load management, no 100 threes being hoisted per game. They actually tried in the All-Star game. There was no social media. There was no corny-ass Black Lives Matter. Yeah, I said it. Before the game, after the game, cool. During the game,
when it's a beautiful shot and the Lakers are up, but when you're a black man in this country, you can't compartmentalize. You must compartmentalize to stay sane.
Hey, ain't nobody trying to hear that bullshit, man.
ESPN and SportsCenter were actually very fun to watch back then. Believe it or not.
Booyah!